Fuck me, I feel absolutely bashed up. I feel bashed up, Steve. I feel bashed up. I don't feel like I'm going to make 20 when I get in the balls. I don't. I feel better than I did. I feel a bit calmer. I still feel like when I'm amongst them, I think there's lots that can go wrong here. Do you know what I mean?
He just looks so relaxed, so cool.
34.
That was by far the best part of the documentary for me and really made me super emotional because it shows everything that we get to see and everything the public gets to see of Ronnie and enjoys. He's the entertainer and he brings that to snooker. But then it shows, the whole documentary shows exactly the suffering that he has to go through in order to be able to entertain and the demands that are put on him and the demands more so that he puts on himself, super, super critical of himself. And you feel for him at all stages of that. It's very, 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 very lonely, very kind of in hotels, in traveling around a lot and, you know, on the phone with friends, etc. And what is wonderful is you get the feeling that, you know, Damien Hirst holds him accountable. Steve Peters holds him accountable. They're not yes men. Ronnie Wood, Keith Richards are there at a certain time. Jimmy White, the same. They challenge him, which is super important. If you look at, he's been the best in the world. Think about how difficult it is to become the top 100 in the world at anything, absolutely anything. Think about how difficult that is. Now think about how difficult it is to be number one in the world, to be levels above those 100, levels above, whether you're Federer, Djokovic, Nadal, think about how much more above they are and for so sustainable periods, long time. Now think about what it's like to do that for 30 years. Ronnie's been at the absolute top of his game to the point where all his peers around him, Alex Higgins, Stephen Henry, Steve Davis, Jimmy White, are all greats, but they just say he is a genius. He is head and shoulders above everybody else. And the only thing that's let him down over the years is his self-confidence, is him not believing in himself. Even though everybody else believes in him, he's super critical of himself. And he's said many times that he would prefer to lose playing well than win playing badly. And we all know why that is, or we should understand why that is. Because if you're playing great and you lose, you just happen to lose on the day, it's just a match, but you know you're on the right path. If you're playing badly and you win, you're on a very, very slippery slope to it kind of going and derailing and going off track. So Ronnie feels confident when he's playing well and everything's coming together. And it's every single kind of cue action, every single ball that he pots, every frame that he wins, he wants it all to be perfect. And that you get, and Damien Hirst sums this up perfectly. There is a perfect sequence to every snooker game. So it's mathematical. And Stephen Hendry also shows his thinking of kind of like, okay, he looks at a situation, bang, 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 and completed frame, and you've won the frame. And his tactics were very similar to Ronnie's in terms of, okay, get in and put all the balls. It's as simple as that. And then it's literally a sequence. So that thinking is genius-like, it's chess-like, but it's also tormenting because Ronnie will get in, know the perfect sequence, but not be able to kind of connect the dots. And he's tormented by that because he wants to play the perfect game. It's so, so, so fascinating to watch. Like, I thought The Last Dance was amazing because we got to see stuff that we shouldn't, and we got to see behind the scenes of the greatest players in the world, the greatest team in the world of all time, and what that actually took to be that, what it actually took to be Michael Jordan. And we weren't prepared for that. Most people were shocked by how kind of selfish, how arrogant, all these negative things about Michael Jordan because we wanted him to be the perfect champion. The perfect champion being, he's absolutely brilliant, he's on a different planet, and he's a regular guy who you can have a beer with. Not the case. Also not the case with Ronnie. I wasn't expecting it, but most people would be expecting him to be more down to earth because he comes across that way in interviews, because you can hold it together for an interview and seem quite normal. And that's a bad example because Ronnie doesn't, most of the time, Ronnie is very eccentric and very quirky, and that's what I love about him. But a lot of people don't like that, and literally he's divided 50-50. If you look at the comments are always the fascinating part. If you look at comments on videos on YouTube, then 50% are like, oh, stop moaning, you live in this great big house, you drive this Ferrari, you've got all these cars, all this money, etc. You're the greatest of all time. Ronnie doesn't care about that. He doesn't care about that one bit, to the point where, I know this because I was talking to him, and he was at one point going to give up snooker and concentrate on his running. He'd run a 34-minute 10K a week or 2 weeks after winning the World Championship. snooker. So he'd won all that money, all that kind of sponsorship money, etc., etc. But then a couple of weeks later, he'd won something like a £70 voucher at a race, a 10K race in London, and wanted to quit snooker and focus on the running because he felt as if he could get 10% quicker. He'd be running 30 minutes for 10K and winning a lot of local races, and maybe he could turn that into a profession and do something outside because he was fed up of snooker. Luckily, he's doing both, and he's still running recreationally, which is helping his fitness and his stamina throughout tournaments, which might sound crazy, but it's definitely a differentiator between the top players. But he's also there because he's got people like Steve Peters. But throughout the documentary, oh man, it's so emotional because there's a story with his dad, there's a story with his mum. You felt his dad's pain when his dad is in jail after getting caught up in a situation and knocking a guy out, and one thing led to another. It was just a fight, and we've all been in those situations or seen those situations, and all of a sudden, just a moment of madness, and everything goes the wrong way. But you've done the right thing in the situation, but it goes the wrong way, and then you're in prison. And that was Ronnie's hero, mentor, everything taken away in it, like 30 years ago. And Ronnie broke up when interviewed about it. And he knew he was going to be on camera, and he was talking about it, and he literally got emotional to the point he couldn't speak. You cannot not get emotional when you watch that because it's so close to home. Like, my dad is my hero, and my sports teacher is my hero. And if anything was to happen to them back then, but even now, it would be insanely heartbreaking. And the story about his dad talking about, okay, he's in prison, and there's a guy who's got a TV a couple of cells down. He won't let him have the TV, but he just says knock on the wall once if he's in, if he's not in the balls, and knock on the wall twice if he's doing well, if he's winning. And by the end of the tournament, when he's won the world championship and he dedicates it to his dad, Ronnie dedicates it to his dad who's in the cell. The whole jail is going mental at 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever it is, when everybody's supposed to have their head down for sleeping. To think about how that must feel for Ronnie not having his dad there, and for his dad being in prison and not able to be there because of a stupid incident in a bar. Painful, really, really painful. And snooker and the public threw the book at Ronnie for going off the rails. Like, if off the rails means doing a bit of cocaine, smoking a bit of marijuana, drinking a bit too much, partying a bit too much in your teens and your early 20s, then how many of us have gone off the rails? It's only because it's polarized because he's in the public eye. He's famous. You can say, oh, people look up to you, you're a role model, etc. No, I just signed up to be a world champion snooker player, and I'm the best that ever lived. I didn't sign up to be a role model. That is a byproduct of it, and if kids look up to me in a positive light, great, but I didn't sign up for that. And so when that situation happens, and then people say, oh, you're meant to be a role model. No, I guess no, I'm not. I understand that my obligation is that, but don't hold me up to that. So it's the most powerful sports documentary I've ever seen. It's so raw. If you've not seen it, go and see it. You can get it on Prime Video, and you can. I'm sure it'll be on Netflix or something like that. But it's absolutely, you cannot take your eyes off it. It's insanely brilliant, and I love Ronnie even more now. I loved him before, but I love him even more now. He's just the greatest, the most talented sportsman of all time in any sport, and. You can say, okay, there's more physical games like basketball, football, American football, whatever. Anything more physical, it's difficult to have the longevity of 30 years in those. But nobody else has done it in snooker or any sport that's not as physical. So you've got to say, when you're speaking about the best sportsman of all time, Ronnie has got to be up there. And it's only because snooker is not in as many countries. But then again, baseball isn't and basketball isn't. So when the World Series is won by America or an American team, it's like, but you're the only guys in Japan and maybe Canada who play it. So I don't know, but for me, greatest of all time in any sport.